Anything you need to tell me about this video?
No. Well, this is a video that went viral, and this is a warning video. And I shared this on the Ken Coleman Show earlier today, and this could be relevant for a lot of our listeners and viewers. So let's play it, then we'll comment on it.
A day in my life getting laid off at Google. So I woke up to this really ominous text from my boss, and I honestly had no idea what it was going to be about. So I called her the minute I woke up and saw this, and she told me to check the news and my email. So I rushed downstairs to find out that I had lost access to basically everything. I couldn't log into my email or even check my calendar. I called my boss back, and we just sobbed over the phone because she was also finding out about my layoff for the first time today too. I started getting calls from a bunch of my coworkers and started finding out who else was let go on my team and some neighbors teams as well. But I think the worst part is that it seems like no one was consulted on this decision and everyone was just finding out about the layoffs at the same time. It just felt like a really bad game of Russian roulette, and there was no consistency around who was let go. It was also not performance-based, so it just felt really random.
Okay, so There you go. Now, in the news, it came out on Friday of last week, George. Google laid off about 12,000 employees, which is about 6% of their global workforce. This is across product areas, functions, different product areas, functions, levels, and regions. According to CEO Sundar Pichai, if you say it that way, I think it is. I think I'm hooked on phonics. That this is a result of Google hiring too quickly and couldn't keep all its staff on the current economic reality. But here's why I showed that video on the Ken Coleman Show and why we show it here, George. Anytime that you hear talk of recession, and we're seeing larger companies laying off people, more expected to be announced this week. A lot of tech companies laying people off. And this is happening more and more. This is a young lady who finds out about the layoffs when she sees the news and she wakes up. She calls her direct leader who says, well, let's get online and figure this out together. I don't know if you've been laid off or not. Yikes. She goes downstairs to get on her laptop and is subsequently locked out. She finds out, I've been locked out overnight. And so her direct leader did not even know that this young lady had been laid off. Now, how does that hit you?
Well, from what I read, I saw a piece that was saying, hey, folks didn't know. If they didn't check their email the night before, they showed up to work, and there was just a line of people checking their fobs, and that's how you figure out.
That's how you found out.
If you can get in the door, you're still employed.
Yeah. Now,
that's a terrible way to go about this.
Now, folks, the reason we share this is if you are at a company, I don't care how large or small, and you don't have a sense that the leadership values you as an individual, not a unit of production, then you need to start paying attention. Because leaders like this, and this is Google, and they think they're too big for it to really have a negative impact on them. But I'm going to tell you something. They aren't too big to fall. And this has been a wave of just social media testimonies about them doing this. I've got a Business Insider article right here in my hands. And one engineer shares a story of being at Google for 20 years, an engineer for 20 years, and he was laid off via email. No face-to-face conversation. Here's a couple more. This is the worst. Another guy says that he went in at 4 a.m. This is Dan Russell, research scientist, said on LinkedIn, I found out when I went to work at 4 a.m. to finish up an important analysis, and my badge didn't work. The guy's going in at 4 a.m. to work, and his badge doesn't work. 17 and a half years at Google gone. Elizabeth Hart, a senior marketing manager on Google's global ads team, said she woke up early Friday morning and saw a notification that her corporate access had expired, along with an email with the New York Times link to the article about Google laying people off.
Oh, man.
So Google is big enough, savvy enough to know that they're going to have to lay people off. There's no excuse for not having a real person sit down with them, eyeball to eyeball, knee to knee, and explain what's going on and have some sense of compassion. But let me tell you what it is, George. It's about a checklist. We got to lay off 12% of our 12,000 people, 6% of our workforce. We don't have time to do it this way. This is how we're going to do it. And you know what? We're Google. We'll just get another batch of young people coming out of college. And I'm going to tell you something. This is eventually going to catch up to companies.
Well, you lose the guy who had 20 years experience, and you hire the guy who's just jumping into this thing.
Well, you make a very good point. Not only do you lose him, you treat him so harshly that he leaves with a bunch of institutional knowledge that you don't even know what he knows and what he's taken with him. It's bad business.
Yeah.
Forget bad human behavior. It's bad business behavior.
That's
So
a shame.
all that to say,
Well, and these publicly traded companies, Ken, a lot of them are just beholden to the shareholders.
that's
It's
100%.
all about the stock price.
100%.
Whatever they got to do to make the shareholders happy, and therefore people become a unit of production, which is sad.
So you want to know why there's an anti-work movement?
Why is that?
This kind of nonsense. You treat people like they aren't humans. You treat them like they are just a number on your spreadsheet. They start to believe that. You know why quiet quitting is a phenomenon? Because of crap like this. Leaders not valuing people. And when you would just keep treating people like units of production, you don't care for them, you don't treat them like they've got a heart, like they've got emotions, then you're going to have a revolt. And this just continues to happen. So we're going to shine the light on it here at Ramsey Solutions because we care about people here. We care about our team. We care about you. And you can work in a place that values you. You better get to one of those places because I'm telling you, if you're not in a place that values people, even if they have to lay you off, okay, in a place where they care about you, they'll treat you well.
That's true. And thankfully, Ramsey has never had to lay anyone off in the history of this place, which is pretty amazing. And it speaks to how much they value people.
So just bad behavior.
So, Ken, a lot of people I see on their LinkedIn, it says, hashtag open to work. What do people do in a case where they were just laid off or they could potentially be laid off any minute? What would you suggest they do on the career side?
Okay, well, first thing is this is a really rough rejection. So you need to grieve this. You need to understand that while it may not be personal, it feels personal. So let's go get it out of our system. Friends, family members, if you got to cry some, fine. The point is let's own it, that it sucks, that it hurts. And then after we've gotten that out of our system, that it feels that way, we got to then step back into reality that it does not hurt your future. A lot of people have been laid off. People get laid off all the time. And there are still a lot of opportunities. And so you get back up on the horse, and the way you do that is I'm going to make connections. I hope that you have connections laid out way in advance. When you get on an airplane and the flight attendants come in and they tell you, in case of a water landing, here are your exits, you need to do the same thing if you work for a large company. If you work for a company that may be struggling financially, you don't know what could happen. So what would an exit strategy look like? If a storm came, I can see you in your new home. I'll bet you have a storm shelter. And so you got your flashlight, cool. You got your batteries, you got your water.
I'm going to John Deloney's house if something goes down.
That's not a good idea because he's just going to put you with the chickens.
That's true.
But the idea is, okay, who are people that I know in my industry that are really well connected? What is a part-time or an Uber-type job that I could take on, or two part-time jobs?
You might have to swallow your pride and go, what do I need to do right now to bring an income?
Well, this gets back to, George, you and what Dave and Rachel teach about the budget. If I know my four walls budget, then what are some jobs that I know that I could probably go get pretty quickly that take care of my four walls? That's what I mean by having an exit strategy. That's temporary until maybe I can then get back into the industry that I want to be in. That's the idea. It doesn't have to be a crisis. We want it to be a nuisance. Big difference.
I like that.
And so the emergency fund.
Yeah, being debt-free and having money in the bank, it changes a layoff drastically.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because now it's annoying and frustrating, but it's not devastating. So, man, really pulling for all those folks that are getting laid off around the nation, and it's a wild time. We are hoping the best for you, that you can jump into a new career, and Ken's advice is spot on. This is not the end. This does not define you. It will refine you if you let it.